Welcome back to Two Dudes That Game, reviewing things. I got it that time. There we go. Got a good name going. We're here looking and reviewing and breaking down episode 3 of season 1 of The Last of Us. And we had a I think there's
Did you say episode 1 season 3?
No, I said episode 3 season 1.
Okay.
No. Pretty sure I did. I can record it back and see if I did the opposite. I don't know. I don't know at this point, man. I'm tired. I was up with my son all night last night. He was just not wanting to sleep, full energy, like playing freaking his eye. I'm like sitting in my room and we still have a monitor in his room. You know, he's 4.
Yeah.
So I can hear like noises and I'm like, the hell is he doing? And I go into his room and he's got his iPad underneath his covers and he's sitting there playing it. I'm like, where did you go get this? He's like, oh yeah, I walked downstairs and went and got it. I'm like, no, that's not how this works. So he was wide awake.
You know what's funny? My wife normally goes to sleep probably about the same time as your 4-year-old son. And last night she was wide awake until 2:30 in the morning. We were watching Yellowstone and she just wanted to keep going.
He did not want to sleep last night, and I was trying to keep him from waking up his mom, who has to get up a lot earlier than I do for work. So I spent a lot of time just sitting in his room staring at him, being like, nope, you're going to sleep. Sorry, bud. But anyway, we're here. We're trying to get through this episode, which I think is going to have raving reviews from the general media, but I think as fans, I'm mixed. I got mixed decisions in this one. Probably not for the reasons people are expecting.
Yeah, it's like the fine line you got to walk almost. It's weird.
Yeah, I'll lay this one over to you and say how do you feel this episode did as a whole? We'll kind of start there and then we'll start doing a little walkthrough.
Okay, so I just want to lay this out there. As someone who hasn't played the game, I don't know anything about Frank and Bill. I didn't even know who they were. I did know that Nick Offerman was playing this character that I was excited to see him in a role. I didn't know who he was playing. I just knew he was in the show. The episode was incredible. The episode was very well written. The acting was absolutely phenomenal. Loved everything about it. And then the ending happened. And I thought to myself, this is just like that episode back in Lost where you meet this random couple, you spend the whole episode learning about them, and then they get killed by spiders at the end, and no one in the main cast even knew who they were, and they buried them. And I was like, I just spent an hour learning about these 2 awesome characters. This was amazing. And then they're gone. And I was like, what?
Well, yeah, we kind of jumped right to the end there.
But how did that... I mean, I'm assuming if anyone's watching this, they've seen the episode, so they know how it ends.
No,
but
I'm just...
But it...
Yeah,
I don't understand how it does anything for the whole of the story. I mean, maybe there's more as the season goes on. Maybe there's some flashback scenes that relate to this, but like... And then I wake up the next day to see all these raving reviews. The Last of Us is crushing it. This is the best episode. This is going to go down as an episode in history. And I'm like, are they watching the same? Is there something I'm missing from the game that is going to happen from this? Because
I think you always have to look at the aspect that it was 2 gay men in this episode. So there is your raving reviews right off the bat. That the fact that they did that, but I'm like, if they didn't do that, I would have been furious because Bill was gay in the game. So it's not like they made a big change here. They just followed the game. Now, in the game, we never meet Frank. Frank's dead. Like we have never met Frank. Okay. We don't know who Frank is. We've never seen Frank. We just know Bill's there, and we hint that Frank and Bill. We know Bill is gay because like Joel asked, like, where's Frank? Well, Frank's not here anymore, kind of deal, and Bill doesn't want to talk about it. So we know that there's a deep relationship there, kind of like the relationship that Joel had with Tess. Like, I'm just not going to bring this up. We're going to move forward.
Yeah.
I kind of have your same sentiments here. I don't want to take anything away from the actors and the acting. And like, if this was an hour and a half long movie, it was phenomenal. But this is like kind of episode 3, kind of an anchor episode where you're expecting something kind of big to happen, kind of to set the tone for the rest of your episodes here. And we move 5 miles.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's it. This is an entire flashback. Now, I did think it did open up the door for us to know that even if we lose characters, we may not lose them in the show. We may get to see other things from them, because Tess comes back for a little bit in this one. So, we might get those characters coming back. So do we lose them as a whole completely? Maybe not. But do we lose them as moving forward in the story, like with the game? Yeah, they're not going to progress forward. It's over with. So let's kind of get into the breakdown of the episode. I think we both have the same feeling here. If this was just an HBO hour and a half, I mean, it's an hour and 15-minute episode. If this was just a small, movie, I think all of those reviews are valid. But the fact that it's an anchoring episode 3 of the Last of Us story,
exactly.
I'm upset that you made me really care and fall in love with these two characters and their drive and desire to create something beautiful out of this terrible world we're living in. Like, it's this beautiful love story in the middle of the worst thing that could possibly happen. And I'm like, okay, these guys are gonna make it, and you just rip that from me. And I think maybe if it ended in without the double suicide, like this poetic ending, because in all honesty, that doesn't feel like Bill.
Yeah.
Like, it feels like this Bill. It doesn't feel like the game's Bill. Do you know what
Yeah.
And you haven't played the game, so it's not. I'm just like, why did you make me like them so much? Like, why did you have to do this whole thing? So anyway, let's go ahead and go through the episode. Take us through it, James.
Here we go. Bear with me.
This is your thing.
So what I thought was interesting is there's nothing before the opening credits.
No, we've
gotten conditioned over the last 2 episodes
because
kind
the
of a
whole
big
thing's
flashback.
So it's not like we're just getting a little bit of information, then we're going to go in the story. It's like
no,
we're
I understand,
getting a little bit of information from them, and then the flashback.
Yeah.
So we've reversed our process here.
So we go right into the opening credits, and next thing you know, it pops up to the river, and you see, I believe this is Joel trying to, rinse off his hand.
He's rinsing off his hand, and he's also creating like a headstone for Tess at the same time with stacking of the rocks. That's so there's 2 things there with stacking of the rocks. One they're used for navigation. So if he's going in a way that he doesn't necessarily know the direction, you can stack rocks in order to give yourself bearings.
Yeah.
And the other side that you can use that for as a semblance of, the headstone that he's creating for Tess that has, passed and got blown up in the last episode, saving them.
So we find out we're 10 miles west of Boston. So they've moved a little bit, I guess more than 5 miles, like you say.
Well, no. They're 5 miles away from
Bill and Frank.
Bill's. So I'm saying from the point that we meet them here to when we get to Bill and Frank's, they go 5 miles in this episod.
Yeah. So you see Joel walks up and Ellie's just leaning against a tree with his jacket, and she says, "Do you want your jacket back there?" He's not like having any conversation with her at all. He opens up some food, he chucks it over to her, she starts eating, and of course, just like she goes back to being a kid. I've never been in the woods. Like, she starts having this like
there's a lot of bugs,
excitement. There's more bugs there, and Joel just does not care, does not want to talk.
Yeah,
and finally,
Joel wants nothing to do with
it. Ellie breaks down and just says, "Look, it's not my fault what happened to Tess. Don't blame me for something that's not my fault. You needed a truck battery and a truck I was your way to get it. You volunteered to do this. No one made you do it. So don't blame me.
Yeah, and you know what? She's got every right to say this. She's 100% correct. Joel's there pouting and trying to blame her for his decision, and wasn't her fault. It was the nature of the beast. There's nothing you could do about it.
Joel doesn't really want to have any kind of conversation with her, which I think is funny. She finally gets up, hands him the jacket, and they start to walk a little bit. And that's where she does say, how much longer? And he says, a 5-hour hike.
5 hour. Okay. So not 5 miles. One
yeah,
mile
they
an
gave
hour.
us 20 years in 5 hours. That's fine. They start to walk and they have this, like, I don't know, just this weird, like, changeover where it's like, oh, they've walked about an hour, so here's this transition to this next thing.
Well, I think there's also some kind of, I think it's just setting the scenery and how they're, they're not walking through like streets. They're kind of taking, a back way. And I think what they're trying to portray really is the wilderness has taken over.
Yeah. And the thing I like here is that Joel's very much head on a swivel, constantly looking, and she picks up on that and she says, is there a lot of infected out here? And he's like, nope. And she's like, well, then what are you looking for? And he's like, other people.
Yeah.
So it shows you that it's just the Raiders and other people can be bad. And
there's one thing. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, then he just kind of goes, she kind of goes on and says, what, are Bill and Frank nice? And he's like,
Frank is.
And then she wants to know about the scar on his face. Like, is it something lame? Did you fall down the stairs? Or did you get shot? Or what? Is it something cool? He's like, I got shot. And she just goes on and on like, they missed, or they suck, or do you all suck, or what happened? And are you just not good at shooting? And he's like, people just miss a lot when they're shooting. It just happens in general.
I think that's the funny, like, it's interesting there. And I love how he said that, because he's like, it doesn't matter. You miss a whole lot more than you hit. Like, if anyone's been shooting, they know that. Shooting a moving target or from distance or anything like that is not easy. And I'm wondering if that scar, I don't remember, but did he get that?
I was thinking that he got it from Sarah. Yeah, I was thinking that it came from the incident with Sarah.
Yeah,
that was my
thought.
thought.
Didn't want to talk about it.
Yeah, that was my thought too. But then I thought this was funny as they start to get out here. Ellie, again, for the third episode in a row, brings this up, and she says, well, seeing it's just the two of us, I should probably carry, because she notices the extra gun on his waist, and he doesn't even glance an eye at her. And he's just like, no, cuts her off right immediately. And it's that kind of fun little banter that you can tell. I don't know if this is just to portray that he still doesn't trust her. Because at one point in this, he wanted to see her arm again when they were still in the woods. That's one of the first things he said. Let me see your arm again.
Yeah, I don't think he's not 100% trusting with her. This episode, I think, is where he starts to learn to care again, I guess is the way you could put it. I think that's the only thing we may have gained from this episode is Joel is going to start to gain the understanding humanity that he needs to bring his humanity back in order to do this one more thing. So then she moves over to like my favorite comment in this whole episode was where he's looking around. She's like, you have no idea where you stashed the stuff is. He's like, I'm zeroing in on it.
Yeah. Yeah. So they get up to this
where he hid his stuff.
They get up to this gas station and he doesn't, he's like, well, we stash stuff here. And he's like, she keeps asking questions. I like as they're walking in, he's like, you ask a lot of goddamn questions. And she's like, yes, I do.
Yes, I do.
Like just a kind of a smart ass,
that's
teenage.
my daughter. Like when she said that, my wife and I looked at each other and we're like, yep, that's our daughter. 100% a comment she would make, and just continuing to nonstop ask questions.
And then I found this was super interesting. And I don't know if this, as they walk into the gas station, she noticed something. She freaks out. And turns out it's a Mortal Kombat arcade machine. And I thought this was hilarious because she's like, oh, my friend knows all about this game. And she goes on and on and on about all the characters in it, and especially this one character and how they swallow you whole. And I was like, all I kept thinking was like, did they have this in a QZ, or did she just learn from her friend about this game? Maybe they had a, gaming magazine or something.
It could have been either. I mean, I'm sure they found more of them, and they would be honestly the ones that would be easy to renovate and keep them going, because those parts were made to last forever.
Yeah.
So it could have been either, but I think it also is a hint back to, I can't think of her name, but the girl she was with when she got bit.
Riley.
Riley, yeah. So I think that's also probably who she heard it from.
Okay. So they go through that, and then she basically is just immediately bored because she's a teenage kid. And he's looking for his stash, can't find it. So she starts wandering around. She's like, well, I'm going to go look for other places and see if anything... He's like, everything's been picked over. She's like, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. So she starts wandering around in the back room, and she eventually finds this hatch under some things.
I was just like, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Really? You're going to jump down in a dark hole? It's a fungus, girl.
She that has no...
grows underground, and I'm like, well, it's just like, okay, she's gonna get bit again. Like,
she doesn't care if she gets bit.
I know, but she, like they said earlier, she can still get ripped apart. She's not immune from getting ripped apart.
Well, she's curious. Joel kind of holler. He hears some noise, so he says, "Are you okay?" She's like, "Yep." She decides to jump down, turns on her flashlight, and seems pretty safe down there. Now, all of a sudden,
somebody's bunker.
Yeah, but all of a sudden she finds... What does she find in there that she's super excited about?
Which part?
The tampons.
Yeah, she finds them. So, I mean, she's a teenage girl.
Yeah, so she's like,
at the right age that would need to have, feminine products.
Yeah.
And I can't imagine that they're, easy to come by. So, yeah, I think that absolutely. And
that was like gold for her.
But it's one of those things where if you really think about it, like Joel would never think to pick that up.
No, not at all.
So she's 100% right when she's like, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. Like, you're not looking for the same things I'm looking for. So, I mean, she's smart enough to know that, yeah, my needs are different than your needs, and you're not going to consider them. So I'm going to have to go find my own crap to keep myself going.
Well, then she hears this noise and she spans around with her flashlight. It turns out it's a infected, and it's buried under a bunch of rubble.
Yeah. So I'm wondering if this guy, because if you look behind there, like the steps are gone where there would be like, you can see the planks where they would have had wooden steps in for you to get in and out of this. So I'm wondering if someone just threw this guy down there that turned to try to save themselves, and he's been in there. And how many times has Joel and Tess been here? Like, does Joel know that thing's down there? Because they obviously stashed stuff here, so they may have never even gone back there and looked.
So what I find interesting is she gets really, really, really close to this infected. And at first I was like, what if the fungus like tells all the other fungus that they're there? I started getting really nervous. But she has this curious, it's like she just wants to really understand what this is. So she takes her knife out and she cuts this slit across the top of his eye. And I was like, what is she doing? But I guess it's just more of a curiosity, right? Is that what you would chalk this up to?
Yeah, I mean, I think I think one, it's a curiosity, and two, after you see what happens right afterwards, there's an anger that she has, and almost a sympathy killing at the same time, where she ends up stabbing it in the head, because there's a human in that body. But I think by cutting it, if it had have bled, it would have been more like it was human. But since it was the little fibers coming out at that point, you would look at it as it's completely gone. It's no longer a human anymore. So I think by doing that confirmed her want to stab it in the face of, like, am I stabbing a human or am I stabbing a pure infected? And at that point, I think it's a pure infected. It's not a human anymore. Because they're not bleeding. There's no blood. There's just this, the white fungus.
So Joel starts to hear a little bit of noise, and he starts, getting a little curious as he's picking through his stash that he finally found. He yells back to Ellie, doesn't hear anything. He gets up, starts to walk towards the door, and he's like, Ellie, and she's like, yep, right here. And she walks out, she pulls up the tampon, she's like, picked over my ass. She walks over to where Joel's stash is and sees that he's putting a gun back in there. And again,
he's putting the AR back.
Yeah, she asks for the gun, and he's like, "There's not enough bullets, so it's not worth taking out."
And he's right. So like, I mean, if you really think about it, that the weapon that he has there, the rifle that he's using, that rifle ammo is going to be very hard to come by. And the other part is it's not the easiest to create your own bullets and rechamber and all that stuff. It's not like they have it laying around. So in the game, ammo's scarce. Like, it's super scarce. That is one of the biggest differences when you go through the levels of this game from easy into the insane mode, is just the amount of lack of resources that you have at your disposal.
Now here's where, Joel, back to being his negative Nancy self. Good Lord, this guy is a complete buzzkill for her all the time. They come across this crash plane. Now, yes, I think Ellie's smart enough to know that was an absolute disaster and people probably died on the airplane. I'm sure she understands that. But instead she turns it into, oh wow, plane, like, did you ever get to fly in one of those? Like, I would love to fly. And you got to remember, she was born after this started, right? So she's never been in an airplane. And he's like, yep, I've been up in the sky. And she's like, oh, it must have been so cool. You're so lucky. And then he's just like, well, they got to fly too. It's like, good Lord, just let the girl have a little bit of joy for once, Joel. My God.
But he doesn't have any. Like, that's the thing. There's nothing happy for him. Everything's gone. Everything's dead. And then moving on. And I think that's the difference between someone who's only known this to be able to look at the bright side of things, because this is all I've ever known, to someone that's seen the world in a better place. Because to her, this is it. Like, this walk is like the greatest thing that's ever happened.
Yeah.
And to her, infected are just infected. They're just there. They've always been there.
So then they start walking a little bit more. And of course, Ellie can't shut up. She's got to ask plenty more questions. But this conversation, I think, is really important. We finally get to maybe kind of understand what happened over that weekend when this outbreak started. She kind of asked, so just one day everybody was fine, then the next day was bad. And he says, well, kind of started on Friday. By Monday, everything was gone. And they go through this a little bit. He kind of wants to know, like, didn't you learn this in school? Because she's like, I bet a monkey started this. I'm sure it all started from a monkey. And he's like, didn't you learn this in school? And she's like, yeah, I went to school, Fedra school. They don't teach us how their shitty government ruined the world. Just kind of like that. I mean,
well, and I think what it gave us really is a timeline of like, hey, this distribution company distributed this, this grain. The more grain you ate over the course of time, it takes 48 hours for it to, the more you ate, the faster it got infected. And, day 1, day 2, day 3.
Yeah.
It's over. Like that's why it started that way. And if you really think about it, that's how fast it could happen if it got into the food source. Like, grain is shipped around the world super quickly and made fresh a lot of times.
Yeah.
So, got into the pancake mix, it got into a bunch of different stuff that they had.
Yeah, bread, cereal, pancake mix. And it just kind of made me laugh because they hit all the things that they didn't eat in that first episode. So I thought that was pretty funny. And he says, the first day goes on, they started to get sick, afternoon, evening, they got worse. And the one thing I thought was interesting is that he talks about people getting bit. And she's like, well, how did the first person get bit?
That's a good question. Well, that's the whole thing. How did the first one get bit? Well, they didn't get bit. It was in the food.
Yeah.
So like the whole thing was the fungus mutated and found a carrier within the, sucrose that it needed in the flour, essentially grain, the sugar that's in the grain and the flour, the carbs.
Yeah.
And hitched a ride. And then got into humans and then was like, oh, I can live in here because I've already learned to adapt to these warmer climates that I've had to do because of global warming and all of these different things. So then you kind of get where Joel doesn't want to stay on the road. They're continuing to walk. And Ellie, being Ellie, is like, no, the road's easier and I want to see what this thing is that you don't want me to see. And it was kind of funny because we just had this moment where Joel is like uncompassionate, uncaring, and then he's trying to do something nice for her here of not walking past this mass grave. And really it kind of shows you again the infected are the infected. The humans are the really dangerous ones.
Yeah, and what's crazy is that she's like, well, how'd this masquerade get here? And he says, well, basically the government went through and started going through the small towns to collect people up, putting them on buses, saying they're going to a QZ zone. I mean,
and they would kill them, and they would kill them because guess what? We don't have any resources. So
yeah, we don't have enough room for you, so we're going to kill you. And Ellie says, well, why not just let them be? And I thought this was really interesting. And he says, because dead people can't be infected.
Yeah. I mean that, and
they're trying to limit the.
Think about it. We're talking about a government that's already bombed their major cities. Like they're not afraid of killing things that they think might be infected or could become infected. They did that with Sarah. They did that with Joel. Just even the thought process. Now that was during mass hysteria, so you would think like after they've kind of controlled it a little bit, and they would have these testing protocols, but it was before they had the little scanners on the necks.
Yeah.
But it's also, we don't have the resources. We broke down, like, just think about all the things we couldn't do when COVID first hit.
And then I like this. Yeah.
Nothing compared to what we're talking about here.
Exactly. Now I like this transition. They show the fabric on the ground, and then they transition to this mother who, of course, is holding a baby. So you've already got in your thought, well, great. Here's all these people loading up on this bus. They're about to go get murdered at that grave we just saw. Yep. So I thought it was great work to give that human feel there to everyone. And as the government and the soldiers are going around the town, crossing off doors, very symbolic of things we've seen over the years in our own history, you finally see this person looking through security cameras, because you see these, I think they're Panasonic security cameras mounted all around this house. And turns out this is Bill, and he's in this hidden bunker just looking at all the different cameras and making sure the soldiers are gone. And it's just kind of funny because he's like, not today.
No, not today, you new world order jackboot fucks.
Not today, you new world order jackboot fucks.
When I heard that, I was like, I love that. New world order jackboot fucks. Like, great.
So I love they finally go, so he starts to go upstairs, and I love how it pans around the room. He's got a guns and ammo magazine. He's got the sulfuric acid. Very much he's got so many guns. Just
survivalist.
Cracks me up. So he's a prepper, survivalist, whatever you want to call him.
You can make fun of him until the world.
I'm not making fun of him. I'm just saying I thought it was a lot of.
The world can make fun of these prepper guys until everything shit hits the fan. Then I'm like, aha, I was right. No, he has a well-kitted arsenal and a really nice wine closet.
Yeah, that is true as he's going up there. So he comes up and he's, coming up all soldier-like. And I was like, okay, what's going on here? And he gets out and he realizes he is alone.
No, I think he knew he was going to be alone. Like, he wanted to make sure he was alone.
Yeah, but I mean, he finally okay,
I'm good. Yeah,
I am alone.
Take this mask off.
And then Ender, why don't you go ahead and take it a little bit from here? What does Bill end up doing?
Well, so he does what any good survivalist would do. He decides to start raiding stuff. So he gets his truck together.
Immediately.
Immediately. Like, this dude's like, okay, everyone's gone. Everyone's out of here. So it was kind of confusing. I didn't know what he was doing at first because he takes his boat with him.
Yeah, I was thinking, man, is he about to go on a boat trip? Why the hell is he taking
his boat? Like, is he going to go in the... And I'm like... And it immediately made me think, well, affected may not be able to swim. Like, if I'm in the middle of, like, a lake and I just come in and out, maybe it's a good place for me to live and hide. No, he was using his boat as a trailer to go pick up all the supplies from the Home Depot that he was picking up. And then he realizes they shut off the power. So... This part is a little stretch, but I guess if you're the survivalist guy that this is supposed to be, you would know. Maybe he works at the plant. Like, I don't know here, but how do you just go into a natural gas power plant?
He knew exactly what to do.
What to do to turn your gas back on and the power back on. Like, he knew exactly where that gas line was and where to turn it. So you can tell he's been planning for this for a while. He's been prepping for a while, and he knew exactly what he was going to do when, S hit the fan for him. And he's got a generator in the backyard, cutting down trees. He puts up the fence line. This dude starts building barricades. He's putting pipes up to shoot stuff at people, traps in the ground. I mean, he goes out and hunts. I want to say that it was a deer. He cooking himself some venison, and he has a good meal that night by himself.
I mean, what cracked me up about, he didn't just like go kill something and eat. This guy had he went as it was a 5-star Michelin chef and prepared his meal and had an amazing presentation of it on the plate and had a glass of wine with it.
You're not expecting it from the kind of guy you think he's going to be.
I mean, he's got chickens, he's got everything.
Yeah, he's ready to go. And then he's sitting down eating dinner. Another great Bill moment, which is why I'm so upset that Bill's not continuing. Here comes this infected walking along, and he's watching on his Panasonics.
It's like an episode that he's watching. Yeah. It's not like he's looking at entertainment.
The alarm goes off, and he's watching, and he's just like, it's not like he's like wanting him to turn away. He's like, keep coming. And he's got this tripwire set up with a basically a shotgun shell that's set on here, and boom, comes across, blows his head off, and down goes one infected. And he just kind of sits there and shakes his head, and he's just like, that doesn't get old.
Which tells you this has happened multiple times.
So we go over more than like one day here of him getting everything prepped on that time. And then you kind of get him come in. You see he's got this radio frequency on his fence, and he just kind of starts to live his life, goes out and picks up the materials he needs. And
we get some major time jumps.
Yeah, we jump 4 years here, and now we're in 2007. So we go from 2003, from when they evacuated, to 2007, and he's built. He's continuing to build his armament, really, like his stuff, and keeping himself entertained. And then, and
I love how it shows the "Don't tread on me" flag and things like that, because I think that's really setting the tone.
Right around when it started.
Yeah,
this is when all those things really picked up.
Yeah, and it really sets the tone on what kind of person Bill is.
Yeah, this is a survivalist prepper, ready to go. Like I'm no bullshit kind of person. So then, as he's down here, I don't know, grinding on a grinder. Like, it's kind of weird. I don't know what he's making there, but he's I guess fixing the grinder that he has. Another alarm goes off, and it looks like something has fallen into one of the pits that he has. So he kind of finishes up what he's doing. He heads out. He goes to the fence. He is decked out. He's got rapid draw pistol holster on the leg with the 12 gauge shotgun with the hole strapped up. Like, this dude's ready to go. He's ready for more than one encounter here. And as he's walking up to the hole, what does he hear?
I'm not infected.
I'm not infected. It's a human. So and someone
it kind of freaks him out.
Yeah, still in control of his body, because this doesn't seem like it's a city here. This is a little bit more of a remote town where he's kind of expecting these guys, and I got more of like a Walking Dead vibe here.
Yeah, well, you got to remember it's been 4 years since he's talked to a human, probably.
Yeah, we're assuming that it's been that way, but we wouldn't know. So we have this guy that falls into this hole. Frank asks us if we don't know his name yet. I'm sorry. Bill asks us if he's okay, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm just kind of bruised." And then he walks away, and the dude in the hole's kind of like, "Man, this guy's just gonna leave me down here." And he comes back with a ladder, lets him out with a ladder, but somehow has gotten a hold of one of these scanners. So as he's coming up from the ladder, he doesn't trust them yet. He's got him held at gunpoint, and he, puts the scanner up to the neck and kind of pokes him and shows that it's green, which we've learned, like, red is dead, green is good.
Yeah, well, what I thought there is, okay, he must have had some sort of contact, and he knows what's going on in the world to eventually get that scanner. He has to, right?
He's fought somebody from Fedra, took it from Fedra, knows someone from Fedra. So he's got something from the government to what he's want to. And now he's like, I'm trying to get to Boston QZ, the guy in the hole. And this guy's got some balls on him to be like, yeah, well, I'm actually really kind of hungry. Like, could you just feed me? My name's Frank. I want to eat. So.
I find this funny here. Can we just talk about this dialogue real quick?
Sure.
Real quick here. I like how Frank gets up. He's like, I'm going here. And he's like, it's so many miles. Go this way. And he's like, well, when I say it out loud, it doesn't feel like it's that long. And,
he hasn't eaten in 2 days. Yeah. He says it out loud. It's like, it hasn't been that long.
And Bill's like, well, you can just go. He says, first of all, my name's Frank. And he's like, here's the thing, Frank. If I feed you, then every bum you talk to about it is going to show up here looking for a free lunch. And this is not an Arby's. And I love the response.
Well, Frank says, free? It was a restaurant.
Arby's didn't have free lunch. It was a restaurant.
Yeah.
And it's like,
I'm not sure what we're supposed to get from here, but it was funny.
It was funny. And then Frank realizes Bill looks at him like, are you fucking kidding me? Is that what you're like? I'm holding a gun to you and you're trying to make jokes right now? Like, is that?
I don't know if he was making a joke. He was just more making like a statement. Like, but at this point,
it's almost like two guys that are so matter of a fact that they come to this realization that they might be a little bit more similar than they think.
But here's the thing that's even more interesting about it is that I think he's willing to make that comment with a gun held to him because I'm walking through I haven't eaten in 2 days. I'm walking through this countryside full of infected beasts and you're holding a gun at me. Like, you're the least of my worries with the gun being held at me than everything else out here that's been trying to eat me that he's probably been avoiding for the last 2 days. Like, in all honesty, you're the least threatening thing I've seen right now.
Yeah. I love how it cuts through and obviously Bill decides to let him stay for he's going to give him food. And he's in the shower and Bill like cautiously brings in a change of clothes or something for him.
Yeah.
He's like, hey, I left some clothes for you because he realizes Frank's in the shower.
Yeah.
And Frank's just like begging, can I have 5 more minutes in the shower? I'm sure he hasn't. Who knows how long it's been since he's had an actual shower. And he's just like blown away that he's having a shower.
An actual warm shower. Because that's the thing. This guy's got warm water because he turned the gas on.
Yeah,
so
that's true.
It's not cold water. So I'm sure everyone has, as long as the pipes haven't broken, you're going to have running cold water. But to have warm water, that's a whole nother ballgame.
Then we see Frank sitting at this dining room table that looks like they're about to have a family meal at. It's very awkward, very much like how you'd be waiting on someone. Like, I thought I had vibes of like going to like a girlfriend's house or something and waiting in the dining room while everyone's like preparing the food and just sitting there.
So I went a completely different way. I was totally thinking like, is this going to be Hannibal Lecter meets like some kind of hillbilly killing family? Like, Leatherface meets Hannibal Lecter here. Like, cause I mean, I know it wasn't going to happen, but that's the vibes I'm getting of this like creepy house.
But I mean, he's got everywhere. Like the full serving plate. He's got a nice wine glass, a nice water glass.
Well,
he's got the full napkin setting.
Man.
And then,
but I do like how he puts the plate down and he turns it the right way.
Yeah.
Like, so it's facing and Frank, Bill is a man's man. Okay. Like, this is a gentleman at the end of the day. He's got manners. He's got things. He likes good food, good wine, guns, ammo. They all go together, man. Come on.
But he comes out with this plate of food, sets it down in front of Frank. And Frank's like, are you effing kidding?
What the fuck? Like, what he says. What the fuck?
And he sets down, like you said, he turns it properly. He's carrying the wine bottle. He comes over, pours the wine.
I love how he pours it with the thumb in the bottom of the wine. Like he pours it exactly the way you should.
Yeah. He does everything proper.
And it's paired perfectly. He has
paired
the right
perfectly.
Wine for the rabbit.
He's very confused.
I wish I understood that. My dad's actually a Semignon. So like, it's really bad that I don't know what this stuff is. And he owns a wine shop and sells wine and everything. It's like, I'm watching this. I'm like, this would mean something to my dad, but for me, no, not at all. It's lost on me with the wine.
But I do like how
that not many people have.
Frank is freaking out about how good this food is, and Bill's like, whatever. He's like, no, you don't understand. This is like, incredible. Because Bill's like, I'm sure food tastes good to anyone that hasn't. So he's trying to give Bill all these compliments, and he's not very good at taking them. And then Bill finally goes, I know I don't seem like the type. And Frank looks at him and goes, no, you do.
Yeah.
So I thought that was.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is where they're starting to understand each other more, and I think obviously there are some vibes here between them more than just fear. Like it was just fear of each other, and now they're starting to enjoy each other's company. And Bill has not had company for so long, and seems like the best. Frank is that guy that's going to be sitting here and having this conversation, talking to you, bringing that out of Bill to kind of open him up from his shell, because that's definitely the personality you have with Frank.
And I thought it was interesting because Bill offers Frank more food, and Frank turns it down, but it's because he's actually full. And if you really put yourself in this, if you're not a Walking Dead fan, you really kind of understand there was very few meals that they got to actually eat where they were full over the years of the show. And that's kind of the feeling I got here. It's like, no, Frank's like, I really ate enough. I'm actually full. I would love to eat more, but I can't. So
yeah. And the other thing is, again, some of the worst things you could do is overeat and make yourself sick, because you might have to like be fighting some dead thing here.
Yeah.
Soon.
And then what happens next, Ender? You want to walk us through this next?
Well, I mean, he's super excited, and he really just wants to play the piano, and he starts looking at through the, like, he's been eyeing it the whole time. He hasn't seen the piano. He knows how to play the piano, and he's looking through all of the sheet music that's in the piano bench there, and he's like, "This isn't you. This isn't you. This is you," and he does nail it. Like, he pulls out an obvious song that means a lot to
Linda Ronstadt.
Yeah, the Linda Ronstadt song here to Bill, and Bill's like, no, you can't do this song. Like you cannot sing this song.
He was also awful.
Yeah, it was not good. It was not good, but still. And then you have Frank sit down, and
Bill sits down.
Bill sits down and he takes it and he runs with it, and he's good. He can sing. It sounds wonderful. And then they kind of have this moments together. And then, they end up hugging and kissing, and you kind of see like, they have this relationship that's going there. And and you kind of got that through this whole time. Like the tension that was building up is like, they both kind of knew each other were gay, and they're going through that. And I mean, it's kind of funny because he still hasn't told him his name. They get to this whole point, and it's like, he's like, "My name's Bill."
Well, I do like how Frank is smart. Frank tests the waters, and he's like, "Who's the girl you're singing about?"
Yeah.
And he's like, "There is no girl." And then Frank immediately goes, "I know."
Yeah, he knew. And I think we all kind of had that. Then they end up, he's like, "You need to take a shower." Frank's in bed. Bill's only done this once with a girl. And then we have the classic HBO awkward sex scene that they have to get in here. I mean, we didn't get any like male nudity here, which was really surprising. I was shocked we didn't get at least a butt or a frontal.
Yeah,
because we normally always get that from HBO. They actually covered them up. They couldn't cover up the poor lady on the slab, but they covered up the two dudes. Like, come on, guys. So
like, make up your mind.
Obviously, you're okay with covering up some nudity here, but they didn't want to do it for the poor lady that's getting an autopsy that was infected. So, they have their scene, and I think it was funny. He's like, "I'll start with some things that are simple." At that
and he
point,
does say, "I don't have sex for lunches, even great ones." So he basically says,
"I'm gonna be here a while. If we do this, we have sex. I'm gonna be here a while." And it's so funny. It is just so typical of a relationship. They immediately go from the sex scene to Frank barging out of the house. "I can't take you anymore. What is going on?" Some years have passed.
Frank is clearly the woman. If you were to do the stereotypical,
if you're doing the stereotype here, it is Frank has definitely more of the emotional side of things.
It just
than
made me
Bill
laugh.
has, and it's 3 years later, and so obviously he stayed for longer than just lunch. And he's banging out the front door like, "I can't handle this anymore. I can't take you." So we're 2010.
And what are they fighting about, Ender? Because it just cracks me. If you think about the scope of what they're actually, the world they're living in right now.
So he wants some gas to cut the grass and some paint to paint the house.
Because he wants it to look nicer. And I thought to myself,
look nicer.
I go, sadly, this might be me. I'm sat here, but I'm like, no, if I'm going to live here, I want it to look nice. What if somebody comes by?
So it's like everyone. I think the world is probably expecting people to like agree with Bill here. I'm with you. I completely agree with Frank. It's like, look, the world has come to an end, but motherfucker, we're cutting the grass and we're gonna paint the house. Like we're gonna at least try
to
live this life somehow. And it's not like you can't make paint. Like you can make paint from all resources they have around there.
And it makes me laugh because Frank's like, I live in this world and we might have company. And Bill's face is like, what?
What company? We're not gonna have. And I do.
We don't have any friends.
So this is typical of me, more me than my wife here. Of like, hey, I'm gonna do this thing. And it's like I'm also gonna open up the boutique. I'm also gonna do this as well.
Yeah, he added so many other things
on that he's gonna do. I'm just talking about the boutique. It's like, why would we need the boutique? We may have company, and I want to take them. It's fucking fantastic. And the actors, the way that they just play this, it's phenomenal. And this is what we were trying to get at the beginning of the episode here of just the acting is phenomenal. We're not knocking the episode for how great they did delivering their performance. I'm just knocking the episode is because I'll bring it up right here. This is where they're talking about friends. This is kind of where you're still. I actually started thinking about Joel and Tess because they're smugglers.
Yeah.
So like oh, maybe that's what, maybe they're gonna have some friends. Maybe they're gonna have move forwards here. Like that there's a relationship there.
Yeah. And I love how Frank walks away, Bill's like, we don't have any friends. And Frank's like,
talking to a nice lady on the radio.
And Bill's like,
what?
You what? Like, in Bill's mind,
and I invited them.
He just invited a group that was going to come raid them and take all their things.
Yeah.
That's all Bill thinks about.
We're having a garden party.
Immediately cuts to Joel and Tess.
Immediately cuts to the garden party. It's Joel and Tess. Of course, somehow they figure
freshly cut grass, I'd like to point out.
Freshly cut grass, no new paint, but they're dining in the garden. Actually, it does look like the house has been painted a little bit.
Everything looks completely cleaned up.
Outside, like in their fence area, like outside of it, it's breaking down. Obviously, not the boutique, but still. And they kind of go to Joel and Tess here, and they're talking, and then you cut over to Bill, who has a cocked and loaded pistol
with one hand on
the table, one hand on it, aimed at Joel. Like no joke. Like I do not trust you, and it's kind of funny because Joel is kind of just like, yeah, I understand you, Bill. Like I get it. I'd be doing the same thing.
We're the same.
Yeah, he doesn't hold it against them.
But Frank and Tess are having the time of their lives.
Oh yeah, he takes her inside, and Bill's like, no, not inside. Do not take her inside. And Frank's like, fuck, screw you. What are you gonna do? Shoot me?
Yeah.
Like you can't do anything to me.
But I like how Joel's like you said, he tells Bill he understands, but Joel just goes back to casually eating. Yeah.
And Joel's eating, and Frank, he's like, I would. But Joel does kind of, while he's casually eating, say, get that fucking gun out of my face. He's basically like you need to holster the gun now. We're this is getting a little out of strain, a little out of proportion. And he does. He does. He holsters the weapon, and we're actually decent people, and they're kind of going back and forth.
But he lets Bill know
Joel
that they can give him
stuff.
Like
he needs something, and the big thing is the fence.
And the fact that Joel could point out exactly what he needs means that Bill respected that because he's not full of shit.
Yeah, and that goes back to Joel having skills. He was a construction worker. He was a contractor. He knows how all these things are put together. And he's like, look, you got 10 years on that fence, max. It's rusting. I can get you aluminum spools. You can spool this fence with aluminum and you'll be good forever.
Yeah, and I love
go done.
And he does point out not just your life, but basically saying Frank's life too. Like you might pass first, but it'll still be good if you're gone. And then I love is they're going away, because this kind of goes back to the first, maybe second episode, I think, where you can see Tess and Frank talking, and Frank's like, well, if we're going to talk, we need to have code. And she's like, yeah. And he's like, so I was thinking decades. And he goes, like 80s trouble, of course. And she's like, yeah. And I was like, that was the one decade that was like left off in that book.
No, it had an X next to it.
Or an X next to it, right? So
yeah.
I just thought that was interesting. This is the beginning of that radio code.
Yeah. So now you know who they're talking to. Like, hey, we're restocked. We have things for you. So this is who they're trading with. This is their smuggler that they're trading with. So they're making trips to and from here often.
Yeah.
I kind of just want to like, we're pretty deep into the episode and kind of push through the rest of the stuff. And it's really just a beautiful relationship. One of the things I do like is he trades Tess for some strawberries. And
I do like before they get to the strawberries, Frank's all running all happy-go-lucky, and Bill looks like he's about to die.
Yeah, so he's trying to get Bill in shape.
It's 3 years later again.
3 years later, and we're making jumps. So they have strawberries that he traded Tess for. He gave him our gun. So again, like Tess is gun running and doing different stuff there. So it was just a little one, just a little gun. So they're getting these strawberries, and they're just phenomenal strawberries. Because finding strawberry seeds, like it's probably super, super crazy to find that. But like Joel warned him when he left, raiders were going to come, and we get this group of raiders, and holy shit!
Bill was
ready. Like. We got freaking World War III going on outside of this, and Bill's already up. Like Frank is sleeping through this, so Bill hears the trip alarm probably way earlier than Frank did, and he's out there sniping these dudes down. Man, he's standing in the middle of there, no jokes.
Well, he has no cover, bro. You're such a prepper.
See him.
You didn't play one video game.
No, but see,
here's some cover.
But here's the thing, though. Is
because of all the flamethrowers.
Because of all the flamethrowers in the dark, they don't know where he's at. So
even though he's standing,
they could have no idea he's standing. It's like when a cop shines a flashlight in your eyes in the night. Like you can't see where they're at.
Gotcha.
So they have no clue what they're shooting at. They just know they're getting shot. Now, of course, he gets hit because he is standing. Like if you had just gone behind the fence, he would have been fine. You do want to. Well,
he gets hit because Frank distracts him.
Yeah, Frank distracts him. He's out here, and it's like, dude, this is my battle. But he does he thinks he's gonna die here. Like he got shot in the stomach, and Frank lays the Bill on the table. He does some quick surgery to get the bullet. Like we think trying to get the bullet out of him because it wasn't a through and through. The bullet's still inside, which is kind of the worst case scenario there when you don't have a doctor to get the bullet out. But the one thing Bill's trying to do is Frank, call Joel. Let him know, leave the gas on, call Joel. The fire will get them. The fence will get the rest of them. You'll be fine, but get Joel out here because Joel will take care of you. That is Bill's worry here is that if he dies, I have copies of all the keys and get Joel out here so he can take care of you.
Yeah.
So then we've kind of flash forward.
This part lost me a little bit here because it's a 10-year jump. Immediately, and you hear in the dark, Frank's saying "Bill" with a question mark, Bill, and then I didn't really understand a lot of what's going on here.
Well, I think you're supposed to think he jumps forward, and unfortunately, the opposite has happened. He survives the bullet, but it looks like and my wife and I were kind of talking about we were just wondering what disease Frank could have had, but it's some kind of muscle dystrophy, MS, or it could just be an infection that got too bad that's hurting his motor functions. But he definitely has some chronic illness and is not doing good. He's in a wheelchair. He doesn't have the use of his legs. It's not looking good for him, especially in this kind of world. You don't have doctors, you don't have medicine, you don't have all these different things that you would need.
And he's really struggling just daily functions in life at this point.
Yeah, it's not going well for him, and you can tell even Frank has just gotten a lot older. Just kind of run through here. It kind of just shows how bad life has gotten, and it's gotten to the point to where basically Frank tells Bill, I'm done. I'm going to kill myself. I have enough pills. I can take them and I'll just fall asleep. And they kind of tells him like, this is what I want you to do. I want to have one more good day. Like, I'm not going to give you a speech on how every day has been a great day, because there's been some bad days. And, this kind of hit me hard because I had this same kind of conversation with my mom.
Yeah.
Like right before she passed, of this same kind of deal of like, I'm just done, and it gets to the point to where the pain is too much. And it's not like they have good medication like my mom did to try to manage it.
Exactly. Yeah.
To the point to where it becomes too much. And he's like, I'm done. And here's what I want to do. I want to go to the boutique. I want to get married. I want you to cook me a dinner. And I want to just fall asleep in your arms. And you're going to give this, you're going to crush it up for me. I'm going to drink the wine. And I'm just going to go to sleep and it's going to be over. And you're kind of, and I think a lot of people will look at that and be like, I can't believe that's what you would want to do. But I'm looking at it like, yeah, if that's what he wants and where he's at, you're going to have to do it, even though it's going to be a hard thing to do.
Yeah, Bill was obviously crushed, but he, eventually does agree to go along with this. And they you see them kind of forward throughout the day and all the different things they do. And then they get to this dinner.
Yeah, they get to the dinner, and I think it's wonderful. Like, they get married. They have all of these things together that they can have, and they have this dinner, and it's the same dinner that he cooked
the first time.
Night, and he turns the plate the same way. He has the same wine. This is just a beautiful moment. Then comes the end. He crushes the wine up. He gives him the pills, but what you find out is, not only did he fill his glass full, he also filled his own.
Well, he filled the entire bottle before he smashed up the rest of the pills.
Before he did.
He did what Frank asked him to do, but as Frank watched Bill basically chuck his entire glass, which is not something, a wine drinker would typically do, right? Yeah. I think Frank immediately knows, and he says, "You put it in the bottle too, didn't you?"
Yep. Yeah, he said enough to kill a horse.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think this is having gone through like a loss like this. I do know, even from my dad's perspective of things, when he's talking about that, one of the conversations that we had often, right after my mother passed, was, especially for him, like, I have to find a new purpose in life. Like, that's what it was. That's what I did, and we're not in the middle of the end of the world. So like, how do you go and find something else at his age too, and to continue to move forward with that? So, I don't think it aligns to the character that we meet in the video game, but I think it is exactly what I would have expected him to do here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? After watching this story unfold and the relationship that they had, and just at the end of the day, Bill's still a hopeless romantic that fell in love with the love of his life out of a pit in the middle of an apocalypse.
Yeah.
And they built this beautiful life together. And then, and that's where I kind of want to put it. He takes him to bed and they fall asleep, and they both, die in this bed. And it's this romantic, beautiful love story in the middle of the most darkest times of humanity. And that's where I'm really kind of upset with this, is because it kind of gives you hope. And I did, like, for them both to die here. Like it still feels like we ended this with all hope is lost. Like, no one can be saved.
Yeah, that's why I didn't like.
Old age is going to kill me.
But here's some things that happen. Of course, we jump in immediately as they're walking to bed. It kind of fades to black, and then you come back and there's Ellie and Joel at the fence.
Yeah.
Joel tells Ellie to wait. They go through the fence, and Joel kind of has this eerie feeling of like, okay, something's not right. Like, he would have probably assumed Bill or Frank would have noticed them coming up.
Yeah, I think he would have hit some tripwire. He would have hit something. He knew he would, and probably greets them. I don't think Bill's one to leave anything to chance of like who's standing out there walking up to his house.
Yeah. I mean? No. Here's what I thought though. As they were walking up, I thought, okay, remember in the, I don't know if it's the end of the first episode, the second, what's going on, but I guess it's the end of the first, where Joel had been sleeping and Ellie's figuring out the codes. As they left the room, an 80s song came on, meaning Trouble. So my guess is that
Weeks. That's when
Bill sent that music.
Well, you learn that at the end here so it was 3 to 4 weeks before that, because it said because they go down into his bunker and it's playing the 80s music.
Yeah.
And she's like 80s Trouble, and he's like, yeah, it's set, and I don't remember the exact amount of time, but it's set to play if he doesn't set it in a certain amount of time.
Yeah.
So when they were walking out was right when it started playing. They didn't hear it. Would be Bill never made it to reset the computer that was set to play it in the basement. So it had happened. And Joel knows something's wrong when he walks up to the house and he looks at the dead plant. Like that would never happen. With him.
And I thought it was interesting here. He's about to walk into their room.
Yeah.
And
something's in front of it.
Yeah. He stopped though, because Ellie starts making some noise. And then she says, there's this note, but it said to you or anyone. So I figured that was anyone.
I was anyone.
That it came with this key.
To whoever, but probably Joel.
Yeah. And I figured I was whoever.
Yeah. Basically he tells him the code. He tells him there. This is kind of a really important thing here. And this is what I was talking about in the beginning, where this is where Joel starts to realize that he has to bring his humanity back, because he's in his mind, he hasn't saved 2 people.
Yeah, but I do like this. I don't want to leave this one line out. He says, Ellie's reading this. She says, if you find this, please do not come into the bedroom. We left a window open so the house wouldn't smell, but it will probably be a sight. Then she says, I'm guessing you found this, Joel, because anyone else would have been electrocuted or blown up by one of my traps. He. And she looks up at him and just kind of like, is this supposed to be funny? Because it sounds like
awful. Yeah. So, and this is also where he asked, when you said, he asked to see the bite again. This is where he looks at the bite again after he says, like, your purpose to save somebody.
That's true. Yeah.
And that's when he looks at it, because he's like, okay, this is real. And Bill, and now he's like getting this from Bill of the message of like, we have to save those that we love. We're the same. And he's like, you know what? This is my thing to do. Tess wanted me to do this. I have to go do this. I have to finish this through. He goes out and he's fine. I do love, he goes to the truck and he opens up the truck and there's no battery in the truck.
Yeah.
He's like, mother. And then he realizes it's in, because my wife was like, why is there no battery in anything? I'm like, oh, why would it be in the refrigerator? I'm like, that's how you would store it. He has all the components separate to make your own battery. So he has the sulfur. He has the liquid that you would need in order to build a new battery each time in order to continue to ride. So he can make a battery. He can get into this spaceship, as Ellie puts it, because she's never been in a car. He's like, it's a shitty S10 that'll get us somewhere. I'm like, hey, Joel, that was my first car. Is that shitty S10? Wonderful truck.
So they make a deal as they get this truck started. Right? He basically says, I'm looking for my brother, but I'm going to take you with me. And the deal is, you do what I say, and you don't tell anyone about your condition. And she's like, whatever you say goes.
Yeah, and he said, repeat it. So that comes right from the video game. It's not the same time when they do it, but that is your real video game reference. That and the shirt she has on is exactly the same as Ellie in the video game.
And she also steals a ton of toilet paper. Again, something that I think it's funny.
Homage to COVID.
Yeah.
Just take the toilet paper.
And what's the last thing that she's able to get that Joel doesn't see?
A gun. She finds the gun, and I knew when she was looking around, that was the gun that Frank had when the Raiders came, that was in that front spot. So she ends up taking it and putting it in her bag. I don't blame her for doing that. Like, I would want a gun too. And she's 14 years old, man. Like, teach her how to use it and protect herself. But at this point, then they go down, and then that's where he says, like, the radio, she says 80s Trouble, and it's every few weeks. So it's every few weeks you have to reset it. So we know that it was at least a few weeks before they passed.
Yeah.
So yeah, they would not be the greatest smelling at this point in time.
No, not at all. And I
so
love
they
it.
Basically raid this house.
They get in the
build
truck and they
battery.
play Linda Ronstadt.
Yep, and they play Linda Ronstadt. They take everything they need, and he's got like all kinds of stuff, like girls' clothing. It says women's shirts, small to medium. Like this guy he went and got everything. Like he was ready for everything.
So final thoughts as they drive off into the distance. You see the camera. The camera pans into the open window.
Yeah, but the open window homage is, I think, going back to one, the ending and closing of the story, and two, it's also the load screen of the video game.
Oh, is it?
So so you're always at this open window in the load screen of the video game. So that's why they keep going back to these windows, I think, is to go kind of homage to the loading screen of the game. Plus they left the window open, and you see the picture of Bill over there that Frank probably drew. And yeah, I think as a whole, again, it's this wonderful love story where I begin to really take care of these two people. Excuse me, but they get ripped from us. Like they're gone.
That's my biggest criticism of the whole episode. It doesn't come down to the like I said, it has nothing to do with the acting, how they were portrayed, the love story that was told. I think all of that was amazing. I think the episode was incredible, except for the fact you introduced me to two characters in one episode, told me everything about them. You took both of them away, and that's it.
And it's not like we gain anything story wise here. Like we just learned backstory and how we got a battery in a truck. That's it.
Yeah.
We went 5 hour. We walked for 5 hours. We gained a truck, and we learned this. Had this mini series love story in between. That's it. Now, are they going to keep coming back here as like a hub or a location or something? I don't know. But overall, take this episode out and have it stand on its own. It's going to look good, but I think by the time you get to the end of this series, you're probably going to look back at this episode as one of the weakest.
Yeah.
Like, in all honesty, I think the critics are going crazy out there because, again, two gay guys in a film, and, the progression that we're having and things like that, all for it. Wonderful kind of things. But if I'm looking at it as a critical eye of a show fan, I think you're going to come back to this episode and be like, okay, this was probably one of the weaker episodes that we had. It stands on its own as great, but as a whole through the series, I didn't really gain much. It's going to be forgettable.
Yeah, exactly.
I think this episode becomes forgettable as we move forward with this story.
Yeah.
In my own opinion.
No, I think I would agree with that. That's I gave a lot of my thoughts at the beginning of this podcast this time, so I don't have any really closing thoughts. I kind of said everything I felt. I do want to give a shout out for those who don't know. Annie Wershing lost her battle to cancer, who was, from what I understand, played Tess in the video game.
Yep.
Yeah, I know her as the Borg Queen from the show Picard, but
oh, nice.
Yeah, so a lot of sad hearts.
It's and I think, again, I'll leave it at, I pluck this out, cut off the ends, watch it as a story on its whole. It's a phenomenal love story in the center of a apocalyptic world that we didn't get enough of. Like, we didn't get their story to continue. And I think they aged super fast, and you may not have needed that. Maybe you made him a little bit younger so you could keep them around. I mean, he was older in the game, but I don't know. I as a game player, there's some things with that I know we're gonna go do, and hopefully we go do. But Frank's supposed to be with us, so I'm not sure how they're gonna play out.
Or Bill,
I'm not sure what Liberties are gonna do. Now, does this open up for them to bring in this brand new character? Like, we don't have Frank around, but we pick up this new character that's not even.
Is it Frank or is it Bill that's part of the game?
Oh, I'm sorry, Bill. Yeah,
okay.
I keep saying Frank. I mean Bill. Frank has mentioned in the game, but he is already dead.
Yeah, like I mentioned to you last night, we were talking about this. I said one thing that I think The Walking Dead did so well that really threw off the comic fans was they introduced the character Daryl. And everything Daryl did, no one knew what he was going to do because he didn't exist in the comics. And maybe you're right. Maybe this does open the door to give them a surprise character
that is kind of there for things Bill would have been there for, but also gives you the leeway to do whatever you want with.
Yeah,
as you move
and
forward.
you never know what their fate is or isn't going to be because they didn't exist in the game. So every moment could be like, are they going to die here? Are they going to live here?
Yeah, it's a question mark that you have, and it could go from that. But time will tell. Episodes we'll watch, and we got a lot more. We got a lot more to come here. I think we got at least 7 more hours worth of content that we're gonna have to take in, and they got a lot of story to tell. This has been Two Dudes That Game reviewing stuff. Today we were reviewing The Last of Us Season 1, Episode 3. I don't even know the name of this episode. Long Day, I think is what it's called.
Long time.
Long time. Yeah, that's it for us. If you're gonna, please subscribe, hit the like button. Subscribe on YouTube, Spotify. That's where you can find all the audio. Again, this is all under Two Dudes That Game now. We centralized our channel to that one thing. We're going to be doing a lot of reviews for video games, video game movies, video game TV shows, and possibly some reviews around different video game devices. I think James is probably about to admit he has his Cronus over there, and he's going to do a review on that. You don't have it? No, never mind. Thank you all. Have a good day. That's James the Third. I'm Ender. Good night.